Sure.
Ah.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can, and we are recording. So we are speaking with the one and only Geoff Tate. The new album is Sweet Oblivion, featuring Geoff Tate. And the album is called Relentless. It is out on April 9th. And as we say here in Montreal, bonjour, Geoff. Comment allez-vous? And you should know that since you lived here for such a long time, or a while.
Yeah, it's been a while, back in the mid-'80s. And, I can't believe it's been so long ago. Wow.
I didn't know
you crazy.
Jeff. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, he is definitely a Montrealer, and in fact, Jeremy, Operation Mindcrime was inspired by the Saint-Sulpice on Saint-Denis, but...
Jeez, Saint-Sulpice, of all places.
I know.
Well, I think it's a sports bar now, but back then it wasn't. It was what we call in America a dive bar,
Yeah.
kind of a bit of a low-rent place,
Yeah,
But,
there's a lot of
yeah.
those in Montreal, though. It's like, you go to Biff Tech on Saint Laurent. It's one of the sleaziest, dirtiest dives, but that's where Dave Grohl goes to drink every time Foo Fighters play Montreal. So, everywhere's got their own character.
Absolutely.
That's true.
So let me just quickly get into the Sweet Oblivion album. It is the second one. The last time we did this and we spoke, you had told me that you never met the other guys and that you were thrilled to have done this via the internet, and you sent emails back and forth, and being in studio, there's a lot of wasted time, so this was more efficient. So okay, first of all, have you met the guys now, and are you still working through email, or did you finally head down to a studio?
No. I've never met any of the people involved with the first one. This new one, I have met Aldo, who is the producer and main writer of the album. I have met him before, but I haven't seen him for the entire length of this project. We've been in other places, working at different studios, and he's in Italy, and I was in Ireland for the recording of this album. So, it didn't work out to be together, but then again, you don't really need to be, I mean, you're working in studios in separate places, and the technology is such these days that nothing suffers from not being in the same room, and you communicate via phone or email, and it works great. Now of course we have video conferencing, Zoom, and all that, so it's just like being there.
I know.
Right.
We should have done this on a Zoom, by the way. Let me just get into the style here, because I listened to it and I loved it, and I even commented, and I don't know if the comment will resonate or if you don't want to hear this, but I said this is the best Queensrÿche album of the last 25 years, because it just has that voice, it has that texture, and it's just like, yes, this is what I want Geoff Tate to sound like and be doing. How do you feel about it? Is this, is this comfortable territory for you? Are you happy the way it turned out?
Yeah, very much so. It was a pleasure working on this project. Aldo is a fantastic writing partner, and just very open to all kinds of different suggestions, and he's very easy to work with, So that's a big step, and that makes a big difference, when you're comfortable working with somebody. And we just hit it off right away, and it turned out very good. I'm very pleased with it, and it is very comfortable musical territory for me. It's something, it's not too much of a departure from what I have done in the past, and I hope people like it.
It's pretty cool that you talk about the fact that, technology's come such a way, because now you can literally be transatlantic and record a record with these guys and create such great tunes, Is that weird, though, in the sense that, from you coming from the 80s where you guys were, a band and sitting in the studio together and being creative together and sitting with the producer and the engineer and figuring out sounds and working out songs. And is that creative process better for you? Or do you prefer the old days of working together as a band?
Well, in my experience, I've never worked together as a band. It was always one or two people working together and developing the thing, and then the other people would come in and play their parts and then leave. And so nothing's really changed you know, in that respect. It's not like I don't really know of too many bands who, you know, all 4 or 5 guys sit in the room all day long and work on stuff. You know, it just doesn't happen that way.
Unless you're Def Leppard and
Yeah.
taking 3 years to make Hysteria.
Yeah. And that was because you couldn't get everybody in the same room for very long.
Right. No, and it's fun. It's interesting you say that, you know, because I'm a fan. You know, I'm 26 years old, and I got introduced, you know, like melodic hard rock and the metal stuff, you know, when I was in high school. Everybody was listening to dance music, and then I was listening to this stuff. And you know, I'm holding my Empire 20th anniversary CD in front of me. So now it's, you know, celebrating. It'll be 32 years that this record came out, and I always wanted to know that, you know, talking to you, you know, for a young guy that got introduced to this music a little bit later on, you know, listening to songs like Best I Can and Jet City Woman and Another Rainy Night, you know, I really think that this is one of the most underrated albums of that time period, not only from the songwriting, and your performance on that album is just so iconic to me, but even the production of the record. And I really feel like, you know, metal albums tried to copy that sound going forward, if you know what I mean, like the drum sound and the guitars and even, you know, the processing on your vocal. Do you look back on that album and think fondly of it and say, yeah, you know what, we did something pretty damn magical on that?
Yeah, the Empire album was a phenomenal project, really, in a lot of ways and on a lot of levels. One, from the production standpoint, we worked with Paul Northfield, of course, who's a pretty famous guy from the Montreal area, Canadian. I think actually Paul's British, but he was living in Montreal when we were working with him. And James Barton, of course, and Peter Collins was involved as a producer. And yeah, they took, that production team was phenomenal together. And we recorded a lot of real interesting sounds, you know, that I think by today's standards, producers and engineers look at that album kind of as a reference, you know, a sound reference, because it really sounds good, you know.
Oh, it sounds
a lot of different,
incredible. Like, I think it's one of the best sounding albums of the 80s.
Yeah, I think so too. It has a real presence to it, you know. Now, lately, I've been working on records in the studio and then putting my work up against other songs and newer productions. And, you know, the Empire album is very lacking in the sense of the bottom end, you know. It's a rock album from that time period, and then the bottom end isn't really what it is today, you know, on records. Right. But everything else sounds incredible, you know.
Yeah,
it's really something. And but yeah, it was a magical time, and you know, I'm very proud of that album. And we were in the midst of the 30-year anniversary concerts celebrating that album when the pandemic hit, and so we look forward to when we get started up again, continuing that tour and playing that album in its entirety, which I really love doing. I was loving playing that album.
It's a great. It's the one that got me into Queensrÿche. And I'll just ask you real quick. You did a show over the weekend, and you did a show in Florida not too long ago. Has it just been sort of weird getting out there? I mean, is everybody sort of tenuous or trepidatious and just going, all right, well, we're here? Like, what's the vibe these days? Like, what was that Florida vibe like? Was it like, yay, rock and roll? Or was it like, all right, let's just do this. Let's keep everybody safe. How was the vibe?
Well, it was, the vibe is, when actually during the show, you wouldn't even know that there's anything different, you know, going on. People were enthusiastic. They're happy to be there. They're enjoying themselves. They're singing along to all the songs, and it feels no different, you know, from my perspective. It's just the lead up and the aftermath of getting there, and, you know, being there and getting there and that kind of thing. It's all different, of course, you know. And the venues have taken, you know, great care to, you know, revamp their ventilation systems and the way they have the seating laid out. There's so much distance between people. And like the show we just played in the Seattle area here, couple of days ago, it was 25% capacity, so everybody was very spread out. But I tell you, from my point of view, it felt so great to play live again. And it seemed also from my perspective that the audience was just full tilt into it.
Yeah, I can imagine. And it's, I know back in the day, if you'd go to a show and, you're at the Bell Center or the Forum and 3,000 people show up, you go, oh, geez, that's not too good. But now they're limited, but it's just like, yes, we're here. We're moving forward. We're getting there slowly. In terms of moving forward with Sweet Oblivion, is that something that you want to see just as a band or a album project where you just do these albums every couple of years? Or do you actually say, okay, let's get Antonio and Michelle and Aldo and let's head out on the road and let's go play whatever gigs, when of course gigs can be played? Do you want to make it a touring band, or do you want to just say, no, we'll make every album every 2 years and talk to me in 2 years?
Well, I honestly haven't thought that far ahead with it, actually, because we made the first one, it's really a project that you do. And that first project was a project that was, conceived, and we completed it and put it out there, and I had no intention of ever really playing with those guys. I have my own band of people, my group of musicians that I travel with and play music with, and if we perform some of those songs, if I ever do, it'll be with the people I put together to do that. And this album, I think the same way. It's all the people involved with it, making it, are all musicians and people doing other things. So getting everybody together to go out on a tour would be a huge undertaking, But I would like to play some of the songs live at some point. I think that would be very very cool to do that.
Yeah, you can pre-order and save Relentless on CD, limited edition green vinyl, and digital formats wherever music is sold, coming out on April 9th. Is having a vinyl of this album important to you?
Well, I do have a collection of vinyl albums and a really nice turntable and a system. And, after I listened to the records, after I listened to the vinyl records, through once, that was enough for me to not open them up again and put them on the system. They just don't sound great, and I've got
but the old albums don't have a good sound to them, but the new ones that are 180 gram, I think they sound phenomenal. So that's pretty much all I buy. Yeah. Like, I'll buy a CD for the car, and but I always have, if it comes out on vinyl, I gotta have it for the collection.
I like to collect them, definitely, and I have a pretty large collection now. And one of my son-in-laws is a huge vinyl freak, and he's constantly buying me albums, and I'm finding them for him too. I've actually bought all of my albums on vinyl and have everything that's been released on vinyl, which is kind of fun.
You ever just bust out, Empire, Operation Mindcrime, just throw on the turntable, let's go and have a listening party?
Of course.
Oh yeah, I did, Yeah. And then I put on the CD. Then I go ahead and put the CD on, or the MP3.
The MP3.
I like the way that sounds better.
Yeah.
I like the easy access to music. I can just pull it off my phone and boom, it's there when I want to hear a song.
A lot of people do that. They'll go and sample a new album or something, on Spotify or Apple, but the real fans will actually go and buy the physical product, support the band. And to be fair, it also sounds better. The CD will always sound better than that, low bit stream that Spotify or Apple Music is going to give you. So as the artist, I think you want your art to be heard in its truest form, right?
Well, I don't believe that there is a true form anymore. It's if you take, we spend months working on a track or an album in the studio, right? And we get it sounding pristine, just the way we envision it. And then you take it out to your car and you put it on the car speakers, and oh my God, you can't hear the hi-hat. So you're back in the studio tweaking the hi-hat sound and trying to get it to stand out. And then you take it and you get it where you like it, and you take it to your friend's stereo system, and you put it on there, and oh my God, the vocal's buried in the second bridge. Oh my God. Music sounds different on every system you play it on. So what you try to do is just find a balance between trying to make it sound okay on everything, right?
Yeah. And especially with everybody, listening on their iPhone speakers now, it's like you can't really win.
You can't win here. Jeff, let me just take up on
No.
that though. When you're recording, are you more worried about getting that perfect sound and that perfect, that Mutt Lange kind of thing going on? Or are you more worried about capturing a performance and a vibe? And if there's a mistake, who cares? It's got that vibe. It's got that magic. Is it performance over production for you, or production over performance?
Well, I try to treat both equally, but I think that you can't have a great production unless you have great performances, and so it always starts with the performance above everything. And then after you have this collection of great performances, and now it's, what do you do with that? And that's where it gets kind of weird and interpretive, I'll say, because, one guy takes those great performances and he can make a muddy sounding, uninspired mix. And another guy takes it and just blows it out of the water and makes this beautiful, stunning piece of art, So it's all interpretive, really.
Yeah. And we were talking about Empire and how, it sort of is lacking that little bit of bottom end. Do you think at some point you guys would go in and remix that record and add a little bit more bass to it and, re-EQ it and remaster it?
Well, I think it's been remastered and it's supposed to be coming out from whoever owns it now. I think EMI still owns it. They were talking last year about putting it out again as a remastered thing. So maybe they'll, add some bottom end to it. That would definitely be better, because nowadays, people's sound systems handle a lot more bottom end,
Right. Oh, interesting. It's interesting that you say that people's sound systems now handle more low end. Like back in the 80s, like when you guys were mixing this album, was there any subs in the studio, or like why was there a reason why there was like little bass in the mix?
Mostly people didn't notice it. They didn't. Nobody had systems like they have today, and so we had the big, gigantic, impressive 18-inch speakers on the wall. That we'd run the bass through and the kick drum through, and we were recording to make sure that we heard the bottom end. But then you never heard them on that again. In fact, when you got your mix up and you're doing mixes, most of the time the mix sounded horrible on those big speakers. So, yeah, it wasn't really a focus, And you look at an album like Metallica's Master of Puppets. There's no bass at all on that album.
Right.
No, it's Injustice for All. It's Injustice for All where they strip the bass, which is too bad.
But
go ahead.
It's weird though that because now it's like music is just so bass heavy. Like even when I was in high school, like Bose was putting out, the heavy bass headphones because everybody was listening to dance music and stuff. And so it's interesting, thinking about that now.
Yeah. Well, bass is the bass instrument, whatever you use for bass, whether it be a keyboard bass or a bass guitar. It's such an important part of music production.
Yeah.
So important. It's what moves you,
It does.
So,
listen to that bass intro on Jet City Woman, and it's like, as soon as he goes down to that low note, you're right, it does kind of lack a little bit of oomph to it. So
such a great album.
By today's standards,
And I'll just say real quick, randomly, my three favorite Queensrÿche albums are Promised Land, Empire, and Operation Mindcrime, which was recorded here in Quebec, partially at what we call Rush's Abbey Road or Morin Heights Le Studio. Right?
Which is no longer there.
Which is no longer there. But talk to me at the time about going into that studio, because you've had the Police, you have the Bee Gees, Chicago, David Bowie, April Wine, Rush, etc., etc. Was it palpable when you walked in those doors, like, oh my God, this is greatness, and this really is Rush's Abbey Road, or was it just a studio?
No, it was. Well, at that time, I had worked in some incredible studios. In fact, I'd worked at Abbey Road before, which was more like a corporate office, But Morin Heights was a whole different thing. It was like being in a executive suite. You know, it was beautiful, and the surroundings were beautiful. You know, you had this lake and beautiful mountains there around that area, and then you had this this technologically advanced facility where, I mean, the Morin Heights had everything. It had every bit of the latest technology that they could buy, and they bought a lot of stuff. It was very advanced, and I think that's why a lot of artists were coming there to work. One, they were so technologically advanced, and also they had this beautiful place, you know, that was very inspiring to be at. I don't know if I ever told you my first impression of going there.
No, let's hear it.
I've told you
no,
story,
but I want to hear, because when you're in Queensrÿche and they say to you, you're going to, sorry, I'm just going to say, and you're saying you're going to record there, do you get a sense of like,
Mitch, we're going to fly you to the middle of nowhere up province, Quebec, outside of Montreal, and you're going to record an album.
No, but there's got to be a sense of, okay, now we've made it and the company believes in us because they're flying us to Le Studio. Not just any studio, but Le Studio. But what was your first impression walking into Le Studio?
Well, we weren't at a position to fly anywhere. we certainly weren't flown there by the record company. We paid our own way.
Drove up the 87.
And we drove up from Philadelphia because we had recorded the drums and the bass in Philadelphia at a haunted studio on the river. Which was a whole nother experience. And then we drove our rental cars and vans up to Montreal, across the border, got hassled by the police, of course. And then drove, I think we arrived in Morin Heights at about 1 a.m, and it was dark and snowy and cold, and we were all hungry and horrible feeling. And they met us, two people met us there, and they showed us to where we'd be staying. And there's at the studio, there was a house that was like a big old place, kind of looked like a ski lodge or something. And it was very cozy, and they had a fire going. They had food for us, and it was just warm and cozy. And we all went to bed happy and hungry that we made the trip. And then the next morning, we got up and went skiing.
Nice.
Because there was skiing right there. You know, you could morning ski. And then by the time we were done skiing, it was lunchtime, and the studio was open, and they had everything set up, and our tech guys had gone in and set up all our gear. So we went right into the studio, and the studio was beautiful, and again, very warm and cozy. And there was a big window that looked out on the lake, which was all covered in snow. And man, it was just the place you wanted to be, you know, when you have a bunch of musical ideas, because they had every possible instrument, every toy that you'd want, every effect, you know, to play with. You had this huge palette of tools at your fingertips that you could use. And it was a wonderful time. I think we spent like 3 months there.
By the way, this is why they didn't have studios in Las Vegas, because they didn't want the bands distracted at the price of budgets back then. It's like, let's throw them somewhere where they can't go anywhere and they can't do anything, and they'll make the fucking album as soon as possible. It was brilliant.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the label is just okay, skiing, add to the bill, okay.
Yeah, can you imagine these long-haired guys skiing on the mountain wearing like leather jackets and leather pants, because we didn't have any snow gear, you know.
Oh man,
I'd love to see photos of that. That'd be hilarious.
Yeah. What was the
Big Red?
Big Red, yeah. What was like? What was the
big red noses is what I was going to say, because
it
was so cold, your nose would turn bright red, you know.
Yeah, because it's like minus 20 at that time. But what was that one piece of gear that when you walked into the studio and they said, "Oh, they have one of these. Nice. We're throwing that on the album somehow."
Well, they had a lot of gear. I mean, they had every possible keyboard that you could play, and I'm a keyboard player, so I was like in heaven. You know, I can't even remember all the stuff but they had a Moog synthesizer. They had the ARP 2600 classic synths, and I was just having a field day there. And great microphone selection. Oh my God, they had all the classic mics at the time, and all the new stuff as well that they got to try out. was just a wonderful studio experience, and I miss that place. I wish I could have made more music there.
Is there a moment that happened at Le Studio that kind of stands out for you as like a really fond, cool memory of the place?
Well, it has nothing to do with us, really. It's more to do with Rush. They had the studio engineer there was archiving some Rush recordings, and I happened to be in the studio that day, and I was wandering around, and he was in one of the other rooms doing this, and I popped in. Hey, what are you working on? He goes, oh, I'm working on archiving this Rush stuff here. You want to hear what it is? And yeah, because I'm a huge Rush fan, right?
Yeah.
And it was just this weird experiment that Neil Peart had done, where he had built this raft and put his drum kit on the raft, and then floated it out on the lake during the summer.
Right.
And then swam out to his drums, and then they put up microphones on the shore, like 150, 200 yards away, and he played the drums, and they recorded them, over the water, and sound transmits. I guess it's some high speed over the water, and the sound is like you'd swear that the drums were right in your face as you're listening to them. They didn't seem far away at all when you're listening back to it. So that was kind of an interesting experiment from an audiophile, I think.
Wow. And talking about Neil, who unfortunately passed away like a year now. Was Neil a big influence on Scott? Because you listen to some of the cool drum fills on there, like on Jet City Woman and Another Rainy Night. There really, I find, is some Rush kind of vibes on that album.
Oh, absolutely. If Queensrÿche would not be in existence if it wasn't for Rush. They were a very inspirational band to Queensrÿche. To me, as a singer, Geddy Lee was just phenomenal, and a lyric writer, Neil was just fantastic, so inspirational. And Alex Lifeson was incredibly inventive on guitar, just one of the all-time greats. And as a human being, from a human being perspective, all three of the men were really cool people, very giving and open and music oriented, and not caught up in the hype that oftentimes is associated with being a famous musician. They were very easy to access and to talk to, really. And we actually had quite a few interactions with them over the years, for various reasons. We shared a commonality with our production team, and then our management with Bernstein also was associated with Rush in the early days when they started out. So yeah, we were definitely influenced not only by their music, which was huge, but also by the people themselves.
Yeah.
Well, hey, great band. By the way, I'm declaring Geoff an honorary Canadian, just to let you know. I'm just because between living here, recording here, covering the Dalbello song, "Gonna Get Close to You," which great fucking song, by the way. There we go. Honorary Canadian bestowed to Geoff. Jeremy,
send him a passport.
Yeah, I will. Well, hey, could be useful these days. Take it.
Well, that's what I'm gonna say when I have trouble at the border next time. Well, Mitch has made me an honorary.
Yes, that's it.
Canadian.
That has a lot of weight. It really does. I'm pretty sure my wife would even ignore it. Actually. Oh God! All right.
Yeah, that'll either get you right in or turned right around.
Yeah, right around. Anyway, bring us home, Jeremy.
Yeah, Sweet Oblivion featuring Geoff Tate coming out. Relentless, April 9th is available wherever music is sold. You get the CD, limited edition green vinyl, do it on the digital formats. But, buy the CD, buy the vinyl. Geoff wants you to have it in your collection because he's going to have one too. So there you go.
Thank you, Geoff. Merci, as we say in Montreal.
Merci beaucoup.
All right. It was great to meet you, Geoff, and great to talk to you. Hopefully we'll do this in person sometime.
Yeah.
Yeah, when the world goes back to normal, which looks like it's on its way. Happy to say.
Slowly but surely. Thank you, sir.
All right. You guys take care. Bye-bye now.
Cheers.
See you later.